Every evening, Mark, a young delivery driver, rushed through bustling streets, his truck brimming with packages. One fateful night, a stray dog appeared in his path, a scruffy, hungry creature with pleading eyes. Unable to ignore the pup's desperation, Mark made a life-changing decision. When his act of kindness reached his boss's ears, Mark was fired on the spot. But minutes later, something shocking happened, leaving everyone speechless. What could turn Mark's worst day into a moment of unforgettable redemption? Mark had always been a man of simple pleasures. His days were spent driving his rusty delivery truck through a bustling city, weaving through narrow alleys and dodging impatient drivers. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. He worked long hours, barely making ends meet, but found comfort in the rhythm of his routine. His evening delivery route, however, brought him small joy. The quiet streets and orange glow of the setting sun made it his favorite time of day. One evening, while making his last round, Mark spotted a stray dog curled up near a dumpster in a quiet alley. The dog was skinny, its ribs visible through patchy fur, and its eyes filled with fear and hunger. Mark slowed his truck, his heart aching for the poor creature. He had seen stray animals before, but there was something about this dog, an unspoken plea in its eyes, that he couldn't ignore. Mark pulled over, rummaged through his lunchbox, and tore his half sandwich in two. Crouching down, he extended the food, speaking softly, "It's okay, buddy. I won't hurt you." Slowly, the dog approached, took the food, and devoured it in seconds. For a brief moment, its tail wagged, and Mark felt a flicker of connection. The next evening, the dog was there again, waiting in the same spot. Mark anticipated this and brought an extra sandwich. Over the next few days, this routine became meaningful. The dog, whom Mark began calling Buddy, grew more trusting with each visit. Mark even started bringing water and treats when he could spare them. But not everyone saw this as kind. Mark's boss, Mr. Caldwell, was known for his strictness and lack of patience. When Caldwell found out about Mark's stops, he was livid. "We're not running a charity here," Caldwell bellowed in the office one morning. "Your job is to deliver packages, not play zookeeper." "It takes just a few minutes, sir," Mark explained. "I'm not neglecting my duties. That dog, he's starving." "I don't care about your sob stories," Caldwell snapped. "One more time, and you're out." Mark felt the sting of his boss's words but couldn't abandon Buddy. That evening, he decided to take the risk. As he handed Buddy another sandwich, a neighbor snapped a picture and shared it online, writing, "This man feeds a stray dog every night while on his delivery route. Kindness isn't dead." The post quickly gained traction, but Mark had no idea of the storm it would unleash. The following day, Mark went about his deliveries as usual, unaware that his small act of kindness had already begun to ripple far beyond the quiet alley. As he loaded packages into his truck, he noticed co-workers whispering and glancing at him. Shrugging it off, he focused on his route, determined to finish on time and keep his promise to Buddy. By evening, Mark was back in the alley, sandwich in hand. Buddy greeted him with a wagging tail, a far cry from the cautious dog he had first encountered. As Mark crouched to pet him, he heard an unfamiliar voice behind him. "You're the delivery guy from that photo, right?" Mark turned to see a young woman holding her phone, her eyes filled with curiosity and excitement. She showed him the viral post, now shared thousands of times, with captions like "Everyday hero spotted," and "This is what kindness looks like." Mark's cheeks flushed. "I didn't do it for attention," he mumbled. "I just couldn't leave him starving." The woman smiled. "Well, people are noticing. Keep it up." Mark nodded politely, unsure how to respond. As the woman walked away, he glanced at Buddy, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Looks like you're famous now," he joked. But deep down, he worried that attention like this could complicate things, especially if Caldwell found out. The next morning, Mark arrived at work only to be summoned to the manager's office. Caldwell sat behind his desk, his face a storm cloud of anger. A printout of the viral post lay on the desk. "So this is what you've been doing on my time?" Caldwell spat, pointing at the image. "It takes 2 minutes, sir. It doesn't affect my deliveries." Caldwell slammed his fist on the desk. "I warned you, Mark. You're fired. Pack your things." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Fired, for feeding a stray dog. Mark felt his chest tighten with anger and disbelief. "You're really letting me go for this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Rules are rules," Caldwell said coldly. "Now get out." Defeated, Mark returned his uniform and left the office with a heavy heart. He had no idea how he would pay his bills or keep his apartment. His only solace was knowing he hadn't abandoned Buddy. That evening, Mark went to see Buddy as usual, even though he no longer had a job to drive to. He brought the last of his savings in dog food and sat beside the stray, sharing the quiet companionship that had become so important to him. As he sat there, a car pulled up. To Mark's surprise, the young woman from the previous night stepped out, holding a small camera crew in tow. "Mark, right?" she said, smiling warmly. "I'm Emily. I run a local news blog, and I'd love to share your story." Mark hesitated. "I'm not sure that's a good idea. I just lost my job because of this." Emily's expression softened. "All the more reason to tell it. People need to see that doing the right thing sometimes comes at a cost." Mark sighed, glancing at Buddy. After a moment, he nodded. "Okay, let's do it." Emily's interview aired that night, showcasing Mark's bond with Buddy and his willingness to risk his job for an act of kindness. The story went viral almost instantly, flooding social media with messages of support. Donations began pouring in, and strangers offered Mark everything from groceries to job leads. But the biggest shock came the following day. As Mark scrolled through his phone, he saw a message from a local animal shelter. They were offering to help Buddy, providing medical care and finding him a home. And then there was the twist Mark never expected. Caldwell's name was trending online. Outraged viewers had uncovered his role in firing Mark, and his business was being inundated with bad reviews and angry comments. By the end of the day, Caldwell's company issued a public apology and offered Mark his job back, though Mark wasn't sure he wanted it. Mark's story continued to gain momentum, reaching people far beyond his small town. Donations from supportive strangers were enough to buy Buddy proper food and cover his medical checkup. The dog was healthier than Mark had expected, aside from being malnourished. He showed no signs of serious illness, and the vet even noted his gentle demeanor, remarking, "He's lucky to have found you." Mark couldn't help but feel proud, but his joy was tinged with uncertainty. He still hadn't decided whether to return to his old job after Caldwell's half-hearted apology. Despite the outpouring of support online, Mark couldn't shake the anger he felt toward his former boss. The next day, Mark received an unexpected phone call. It was from Emily, the blogger who had interviewed him. Her voice was brimming with excitement. "Mark, I just got a call from someone who saw your story. It's someone big." Mark furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" "Do you know the Peterson Foundation?" Emily asked. "They're one of the largest animal rescue organizations in the country. Their director saw your story and wants to meet you." Mark's heart skipped a beat. The Peterson Foundation was well known for their efforts in rescuing and rehoming animals worldwide. He'd seen their work featured in documentaries and dreamed of being part of something like that. "Are you sure they've got the right person?" Mark asked hesitantly. Emily laughed. "Trust me, they know who you are. I've already arranged a meeting for you tomorrow morning at their local office." The next morning, Mark arrived at the Peterson Foundation office, still unsure what to expect. The reception area was bustling with activity, volunteers organizing supplies, phones ringing, and the faint sound of barking from the kennels out back. A cheerful woman greeted him. "You must be Mark," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Anna Peterson, the Foundation's director." Mark shook her hand, still feeling slightly out of place. "It's nice to meet you. I'm not sure why I'm here, though." Anna smiled warmly. "You're here because you embody everything we stand for: compassion, selflessness, and a belief that every animal deserves a chance. Your story moved us, and we'd like to offer you a position here at the Foundation." Mark blinked, stunned. "A position doing what?" "We'd like you to join our outreach team," Anna explained. "You'd be helping us connect with communities, raise awareness about stray animals, and organize rescue efforts. Of course, we'd also love for Buddy to be part of our team as an ambassador." Mark glanced at Buddy, who was wagging his tail happily beside him. I don't know what to say. This is incredible, but I don't have any formal experience." Anna's smile widened. "Experience can be learned. Compassion like yours can't. We believe in you, Mark." By the time Mark left the meeting, his mind was spinning. The offer was more than just a job. It was a chance to turn his passion for helping animals into a career. But it also meant stepping into an entirely new world, one that came with its own challenges and uncertainties. As he walked back to his car, Buddy trotting happily beside him, Mark couldn't help but think of how far they had come since their first meeting in the alley. The stray dog he had fed out of sheer kindness had not only changed his life but opened doors he never imagined possible. Mark spent the rest of the day processing Anna Peterson's offer. He felt excitement but also the weight of responsibility. Could he really step into a role at the Peterson Foundation and make a difference on such a large scale? His life had always been simple, revolving around work and modest routines. This new opportunity felt like a leap into the unknown. At home, he spread out the paperwork Anna had given him on the kitchen table. The job description was highlighted in bold letters. Buddy lay at his feet, his tail thumping lazily against the floor. Mark glanced down at him and smiled. "What do you think, Buddy?" he asked, scratching behind the dog's ears. "Think I've got what it takes?" Buddy yawned in response, but Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of affirmation in the dog's relaxed demeanor. He pulled out his phone and called Emily to share the news. "Emily, they offered me a job," he said, still sounding amazed. "I knew they would," Emily replied enthusiastically. "This is exactly the kind of opportunity you deserve, Mark. So, are you going to take it?" Mark hesitated. "I'm not sure. It's a big change. What if I mess it up?" Emily's tone softened. "Mark, you've already proven that you have the heart for this. The rest can be learned. Besides, think about how many animals you could help. Isn't that worth the risk?" Mark nodded, even though Emily couldn't see him. "You're right. I'll sleep on it, but I think I know what I have to do." The next morning, Mark called Anna to accept the offer. Her response was immediate and enthusiastic. "That's wonderful news, Mark. We're thrilled to have you join the team. Let's set up your orientation and get you started." After hanging up, Mark felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The decision was made, but he still had to face one final hurdle, telling Caldwell. He knew his former boss had only apologized because of the backlash, and the thought of explaining his departure filled him with dread. Mark decided to get it over with and headed to the delivery center. Caldwell was in his office, shuffling through paperwork, when Mark knocked on the door. "Mark," Caldwell said, his tone guarded. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to let you know I won't be coming back," Mark said firmly. "I've accepted a position with the Peterson Foundation." Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "The animal people? You're really going to throw away a steady job for that?" Mark straightened his posture. "It's not just that. It's a chance to do something meaningful, to help animals like Buddy, who don't have anyone else. I appreciate the opportunity one had here, but this is what I'm meant to do." Caldwell snorted. "Suit yourself. Just remember, not everyone gets second chances. Don't come crawling back if it doesn't work out." Mark held his ground. "I won't need to, but thanks for the warning." With that, Mark left the office, feeling a sense of finality. For the first time in years, he was stepping away from stability and embracing uncertainty. Yet, it felt right. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. Mark attended training sessions at the foundation, learning about animal care, community outreach, and the logistics of organizing rescue operations. Buddy quickly became a favorite among the staff, his friendly demeanor and wagging tail earning smiles wherever he went. Mark's confidence grew with each passing day. He began to see himself not as an outsider but as someone who could genuinely contribute to the foundation's mission. His first official task was to assist with a local adoption event, where he and Buddy would greet visitors and share stories of the animals available for adoption. The day of the event arrived, and Mark stood at the entrance of the park, Buddy by his side. Families and animal lovers flooded the area, browsing the adoption booths and chatting with volunteers. Buddy was a natural ambassador, drawing people in with his gentle nature. Mark's heart swelled with pride as he watched a young girl kneel to pet Buddy, her eyes lighting up as she asked about his story. "Buddy used to be a stray," Mark explained. "But now he's part of a family, and today, we're hoping to help other animals find their forever homes too." The girl's mother smiled. "Thank you for what you're doing. It's inspiring to see someone making such a difference." As the day went on, Mark realized he had found his calling. The event was a resounding success, with dozens of animals adopted and countless donations raised. Mark and Buddy were at the heart of it all, their bond serving as a testament to the power of compassion. As Mark packed up the booth at the end of the day, Anna approached him. "You did an incredible job today, Mark," she said. "You've got a real talent for connecting with people." Mark smiled. "It's easy when you believe in what you're doing." Anna nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I think this is just the beginning for you, Mark. You and Buddy are going to do great things." Mark settled into his new role at the Peterson Foundation with growing confidence. Buddy became the unofficial mascot of their efforts, bringing joy and warmth to every event. The duo's story of resilience and second chances resonated deeply, attracting attention from the local community and even the media. However, as fulfilling as his new job was, it also came with challenges Mark hadn't anticipated. The Foundation's mission to rescue and rehome animals wasn't just about heartwarming success stories, it often involved dealing with heartbreaking realities. One chilly morning, Mark arrived at the shelter to find Anna waiting for him with a concerned look. "Mark, we've got a situation," she said. "A local warehouse has been abandoned, and we've received reports of several stray dogs trapped inside. Neighbors say they've been hearing barks for days." Mark's stomach tightened. "How many dogs are we talking about?" Anna shrugged. "We don't know yet. The city has given us permission to access the property, but we'll need to act fast. It's cold, and the conditions inside are likely rough." Buddy, sensing the urgency, wagged his tail and barked softly, as if to say, "We've got this." The rescue team, including Mark, Buddy, and a few experienced volunteers, arrived at the warehouse later that morning. The building was in a state of disrepair, its windows boarded up and walls covered in graffiti. A faint but distinct chorus of barking echoed from within. Mark's heart ached at the thought of the frightened animals inside. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady but determined. The team split into pairs, equipped with flashlights, leashes, and crates. Inside, the air was damp and musty, the floor littered with debris. Mark and Buddy led the way, guided by the sound of whimpering. They found the first dog huddled in a corner, a small terrier mix trembling with fear. Mark crouched low, speaking softly as Buddy approached cautiously. The terrier's ears perked up at Buddy's presence, and after a few tense moments, she allowed Mark to slip a leash over her neck. One by one, the team located the other dogs. Most were malnourished and skittish, their trust in humans clearly shaken. Buddy played a crucial role, acting as a calming presence that helped ease their fears. By the end of the operation, they had rescued 7 dogs in total, each one a heartbreaking reminder of the harsh realities some animals face. Back at the shelter, the team worked tirelessly to care for the rescued dogs. Mark stayed late, helping to bathe and feed them. He couldn't help but notice one particular dog, a large brindled mastiff with soulful eyes, who refused to eat or interact with anyone. "Hey there, Buddy," Mark said gently, kneeling by the mastiff's crate. "It's okay now. You're safe." The dog stared back at him, his gaze heavy with mistrust. Mark sighed, knowing it would take time to build a bond. As the days turned into weeks, the mastiff, whom Mark named Titan, remained withdrawn. While the other dogs began to recover and show signs of trust, Titan seemed stuck in his fear. Mark made it his personal mission to help Titan heal, spending extra time sitting near his crate and speaking in soothing tones. One evening, after weeks of patient effort, Titan finally took a tentative step toward Mark. It was a small victory, but one that filled Mark with hope. As the shelter thrived under its newfound attention, Mark saw how much the work was making a difference. Titan slowly began to open up, wagging his tail for the first time during a play session with Buddy. The other rescued dogs found loving homes, their transformations a testament to the power of compassion and patience. Mark's journey was far from over, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The challenges he faced only strengthened his resolve, reminding him why he had taken this path in the first place. Mark's dedication to the shelter became a defining feature of his life. Every day brought new challenges and triumphs, but as the work grew, so did the emotional weight. Despite delegating some responsibilities, Mark found himself grappling with dilemmas that tested his resolve. One rainy evening, Mark received a call from a woman named Clara. She had heard about the shelter's efforts and wanted to surrender her dog, Max, a 7-year-old golden retriever. Clara's voice trembled as she explained her situation. "I love Max, but my health is failing, and I can't take care of him anymore," she said, her words heavy with guilt. "He's my best friend, and I don't want him to feel abandoned, but I have no choice." Mark's heart ached for Clara. He assured her they would take Max in and find him a loving home. The next morning, Clara arrived at the shelter, her face etched with sorrow. She clutched Max's leash tightly, her hands trembling as she knelt to hug him one last time. "I'm so sorry, boy," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I hope you'll understand one day." Mark approached gently. "We'll take good care of him, Clara. I promise." Clara nodded, wiping her tears. "Thank you. He's a wonderful dog. He deserves a good life." As she left, Mark felt a lump in his throat. He glanced at Max, who sat by the door, his eyes fixed on the spot where Clara had disappeared. The dog let out a soft whine, his tail drooping. Mark crouched down to Max's level. "Hey, buddy, I know it's hard, but we're going to make sure you're okay." Over the next few days, Max's sadness was palpable. He barely ate and spent most of his time lying in his kennel, his head resting on his paws. Mark tried everything to lift his spirits, long walks, special treats, even introducing him to Buddy, but nothing seemed to help. One afternoon, while cleaning the kennels, Mark overheard two volunteers discussing Max. "Poor guy," one of them said. "It's like he's given up." Mark paused, their words hitting him hard. He couldn't stand the thought of Max feeling so hopeless. That night, he sat in Max's kennel, talking to him in a soothing voice. "I know you miss her," Mark said. "And it's okay to be sad. But she did this because she loves you. She wanted you to have a chance at a better life." Max's ears twitched at Mark's voice, and he lifted his head slightly. It was a small response, but it gave Mark hope. Meanwhile, the shelter faced another challenge. A local developer had announced plans to build a shopping complex near the shelter, raising concerns about noise and pollution. Anna called an emergency meeting to discuss the potential impact and strategies to address it. "This development could seriously affect our animals," Anna said, her tone resolute. "We need to make our voices heard." Mark volunteered to lead the effort, rallying the community to support the shelter. He organized a petition drive, spoke at town hall meetings, and even used social media to spread awareness. Buddy often accompanied him, serving as a lovable mascot for their cause. The fight against the development brought out the best and worst in people. While many rallied behind the shelter, others dismissed their concerns as overblown. Mark encountered hostility at one meeting, where a developer's representative scoffed at their arguments. "You're running an animal shelter, not a hospital," the man said dismissively. "It's not like this is a matter of life and death." Mark's temper flared, but he kept his composure. "To these animals, it is a matter of life and death. They can't speak for themselves, so we have to. And we won't stop until they're protected." As the weeks passed, Mark's determination paid off. The community's support grew, with local businesses and residents joining their cause. The shelter's social media posts went viral, drawing attention from national organizations. Even Clara, despite her declining health, wrote a heartfelt letter to the city council, urging them to protect the shelter. During this time, Max began to show signs of improvement. He started eating more regularly and even wagged his tail when Mark brought him his favorite toy. Buddy played a significant role, nudging Max to join him during playtime and offering quiet companionship during difficult moments. One evening, as Mark sat in the shelter's office reviewing their petition results, Max walked over and rested his head on Mark's lap. It was a simple gesture, but it brought tears to Mark's eyes. "You're going to be okay, Max," Mark said, stroking his fur. "We're all going to be okay." The shelter's efforts culminated in a public hearing, where Mark delivered a passionate speech about the importance of their work. He shared stories of animals like Buddy and Max, emphasizing the transformative power of compassion. The hearing ended with a unanimous decision to impose restrictions on the development, ensuring the shelter's safety. The victory was celebrated with cheers and hugs, but for Mark, the greatest reward was seeing Max wag his tail enthusiastically for the first time since arriving at the shelter. Mark's journey at the shelter had taught him many lessons, but the most profound was the resilience of both animals and people. Despite the challenges and emotional toll, he knew he was exactly where he needed to be. The victory over the proposed development gave the shelter a much-needed boost in morale. Donations poured in from supporters who had followed their story online, and new volunteers signed up to help. For a while, it seemed like things were finally settling into a positive rhythm. But life at the shelter had a way of throwing curveballs, and Mark was about to face a new challenge, one he never saw coming. It started with a call from a man named Roger, who claimed to be the owner of Buddy. His voice was curt, almost accusatory, as he described a golden retriever he had lost months ago. "I saw a picture of that dog on your social media," Roger said. "That's my dog, and I want him back." Mark was stunned. Buddy had been found as a stray and had shown no signs of belonging to anyone. No collar, no microchip, no reports filed. The idea that someone might claim him after all this time felt like a punch to the gut. "I'll need proof of ownership," Mark said firmly, trying to mask his unease. "But he's been with you for months, and we want to ensure he's placed in the right hands." Roger grumbled but agreed to come by the shelter with documentation. As Mark hung up, a sense of dread crept in. The thought of losing Buddy, who had become the heart and soul of the shelter, was unbearable. The next morning, Roger arrived at the shelter, a scowl etched across his face. He was a tall, wiry man with a sharp gaze that made Mark instantly wary. In his hand, he held a stack of papers and an old photograph of a golden retriever that bore a striking resemblance to Buddy. "This is him," Roger said, pointing to the photo. "He went missing after a storm knocked down our fence. I've been looking for him ever since." Mark studied the photograph. The dog in the picture did look like Buddy, but something about Roger's demeanor didn't sit right with him. Buddy had thrived at the shelter, exuding joy and affection, qualities that seemed at odds with the tension radiating from Roger. "Does Buddy respond to his old name?" Mark asked, trying to probe further. Roger hesitated. "He used to. I called him Maximum." Mark nodded slowly, noticing that Buddy, lounging nearby, showed no reaction to the name Maximum. "Come here, Max," Mark called, testing the claim. Buddy didn't budge, instead wagging his tail lazily at the sound of Mark's voice. Roger bristled. Maybe he's just out of practice. It's been a while. Mark decided to stall for time. "We'll need to verify these documents and check with local records," he said, keeping his tone neutral. "If everything checks out, we'll discuss the next steps." Roger's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Fine. Just don't take too long." After Roger left, Mark gathered his team to discuss the situation. Anna, ever the voice of reason, suggested running Buddy's photo through lost pet databases to cross-check Roger's claims. Meanwhile, the volunteers shared Mark's unease about returning Buddy to someone who didn't seem genuinely caring. "What if he wasn't a good owner?" one volunteer asked. "Buddy's so happy here. It doesn't make sense for him to have run away unless something was wrong." Mark agreed but knew they had to handle the matter carefully. If Roger's claim was legitimate, they couldn't deny him his dog, no matter how unsettling his demeanor. Days turned into a week as Mark awaited the results of the database search. In the meantime, Roger's calls grew more frequent and demanding. He accused Mark of stalling and threatened to take legal action if Buddy wasn't returned. Mark confided in Anna, who shared his concerns. "Something doesn't add up," she said. "If he really cared about Buddy, why would he wait this long to search shelters? And why isn't Buddy responding to him?" The situation came to a head when Roger showed up unannounced, his frustration boiling over. "I'm not leaving without my dog," he shouted, his voice echoing through the shelter. Buddy, sensing the tension, barked protectively as Mark stepped forward to calm the situation. "Roger, I understand you're upset," Mark said evenly. "But we have protocols to follow. If your claim is legitimate, we'll resolve this properly." Roger glared at Mark, his fists clenched. "You better hope I don't find out you're lying about this," he snarled before storming out. That night, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. He decided to dig deeper, reaching out to contacts at local shelters and rescues. One of them, a woman named Linda, called him back with startling news. "Roger has a history," Linda said, her tone grave. "He's been reported for neglect in the past. One of the dogs he owned ended up in our care, and it was clear he wasn't taking proper care of it." Mark's blood ran cold. He immediately documented the information and prepared to escalate the matter. If Roger's history of neglect was true, there was no way Buddy would go back to him. The next morning, Mark contacted a local animal welfare lawyer, explaining the situation and sharing Linda's report. The lawyer assured Mark they had grounds to contest Roger's claim, given the evidence of neglect and Buddy's apparent lack of recognition. As Mark hung up the phone, Buddy trotted over and nuzzled his leg, sensing his unease. Mark knelt down, hugging the dog tightly. "Don't worry, Buddy," he murmured. "I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe." As the legal process began to unfold, Mark felt a mix of determination and anxiety. While the lawyer assured him they had a strong case, Roger's aggression and persistence made the situation nerve-wracking. Mark knew that the fight wasn't just for Buddy, it was for every stray and abandoned dog who deserved better than the likes of Roger. The shelter staff rallied around Mark, with Anna spearheading an awareness campaign to garner public support. They shared Buddy's story on social media, highlighting his transformation from a timid stray to a beloved part of the shelter. The response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from supporters who urged them to protect Buddy at all costs. "Buddy is better off with you," one supporter wrote. "Don't let him go back to someone who doesn't truly care for him." The campaign caught the attention of a local news station, which reached out for an interview. Mark hesitated at first, worried about stirring the pot, but Anna convinced him it was an opportunity to shine a light on the plight of neglected animals. "This isn't just about Buddy, Mark," she said. "It's about showing people what's at stake when we don't stand up for these dogs." During the interview, Mark shared Buddy's journey from being a scared stray to becoming the shelter's mascot. He spoke passionately about the importance of responsible pet ownership and the need to hold people accountable for neglect. As the segment aired that evening, Mark received messages of encouragement from the community. Even people who had never donated to the shelter before reached out, offering financial support or inquiring about volunteering. Roger, however, was less than pleased. The next day, he stormed into the shelter, his face red with fury. "You're painting me as the bad guy," he shouted. "This is defamation." Mark stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. "We never mentioned your name, Roger. We're simply advocating for Buddy's well-being. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about." Roger glared at Mark but didn't respond. Instead, he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Behind the scenes, Mark continued digging into Roger's past. With Linda's help, he compiled evidence of Roger's history with other animals, including photos and vet reports from cases where dogs had been removed from his care. The evidence painted a grim picture of a man who seemed more interested in possessing dogs than caring for them. The lawyer filed a formal objection to Roger's claim, citing the evidence of neglect. They also included a statement from a behavioral expert who had observed Buddy at the shelter and noted his apparent lack of recognition toward Roger. "This dog shows no signs of having a bond with Mr. Roger," the expert wrote. "His behavior suggests he has not been in Mr. Roger's care for an extended period, if at all." As the case progressed, Mark noticed a shift in Buddy's behavior. The normally cheerful dog became more subdued, as if sensing the tension in the air. He stuck close to Mark, often curling up at his feet during late nights at the shelter. One evening, as Mark worked on paperwork, Buddy let out a soft whine and placed his paw on Mark's lap. Mark looked down and saw the worry in the dog's eyes. "It's okay, boy," Mark said, scratching behind Buddy's ears. "I won't let anything happen to you." Amidst the legal battle, a surprising ally emerged. A woman named Carol reached out to the shelter, claiming she had once been Roger's neighbor. She had seen the news segment and felt compelled to speak up. "I used to live next door to Roger," Carol explained during a phone call. "He didn't treat his dogs well. They were always tied up outside, no matter the weather, and he barely fed them. Buddy was just another neglected animal to him." Carol agreed to provide a sworn statement, adding another layer of credibility to their case. Her testimony, combined with the other evidence, gave Mark renewed hope. The shelter staff threw themselves into their work, using the heightened attention to advocate for other animals in need. They organized adoption events, fundraisers, and educational workshops, all while keeping an eye on the looming court date. Buddy became a symbol of resilience, with volunteers decorating the shelter with signs that read, "Buddy's fight is every dog's fight and justice for Buddy." As the court date approached, Mark couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. This wasn't just about winning a case, it was about proving that every dog deserved a second chance and a loving home. The night before the hearing, Mark sat with Buddy in the quiet shelter. He stroked the dog's fur, his thoughts swirling. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Mark said softly, "you'll always be part of this family. We won't let you down." Buddy looked up at him, his tail wagging slightly, as if to say he understood. The day of the court hearing arrived, and the air was thick with tension. Mark dressed in his best suit, his nerves frayed but his determination unwavering. As he clipped Buddy's leash to his collar, the dog looked up at him with trusting eyes. "You ready, boy?" Mark asked, his voice trembling slightly. Buddy wagged his tail, his demeanor calm despite the looming confrontation. At the courthouse, the atmosphere was tense. Supporters of the shelter had gathered outside, holding signs that read "Justice for Buddy" and "Protect the Innocent." Mark felt a surge of gratitude for the community that had rallied behind them. He exchanged a nod with Anna, who was flanked by a group of volunteers wearing matching shirts emblazoned with Buddy's picture. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Roger sat at the plaintiff's table, his lawyer by his side. He glared at Mark, his expression a mix of anger and smugness. Mark took a deep breath and steadied himself, focusing on the case they had meticulously prepared. The judge entered, a stern-looking woman with sharp eyes that scanned the room. After the formalities, she called the proceedings to order. Roger's lawyer began by arguing that Buddy had been Roger's property and that Mark had no right to interfere. He painted a picture of a well-meaning owner who had temporarily lost his dog due to unfortunate circumstances. Mark's lawyer countered by presenting the evidence they had gathered, photos of Buddy's malnourished state, the testimony of the behavioral expert, and Carol's sworn statement. Each piece of evidence chipped away at Roger's claims. When it was Mark's turn to speak, he stood up, his heart pounding. "Your Honor," he began, "Buddy is not just a dog. He's a living being who deserves compassion and care. When Buddy came to us, he was starving, scared, and in desperate need of help. We've given him a second chance at life, and I believe returning him to Mr. Roger would undo all the progress he's made." Mark glanced at Buddy, who sat calmly by his side, and felt a wave of resolve wash over him. "This isn't just about Buddy," he continued. "It's about setting a precedent that animals are not disposable property. They are companions, friends, and family." As Mark spoke, the judge's expression softened slightly, though she remained composed. When Roger was called to testify, his demeanor was defensive and erratic. Under cross-examination, he contradicted himself multiple times, struggling to explain why Buddy had been found in such poor condition. The pivotal moment came when Carol was called to the stand. Her testimony was clear and damning. "I've seen how Roger treats his dogs," she said firmly. "They're left outside, often without food or water. Buddy was just another neglected animal to him." Roger's lawyer attempted to discredit her, but Carol's calm and consistent answers made her a compelling witness. The final piece of evidence came in the form of a video. One of the shelter's volunteers had captured footage of Buddy's transformation during his time at the shelter. The video showed Buddy arriving at the shelter, emaciated and scared, and then cut to clips of him thriving under their care. The courtroom was silent as the video played, the emotional weight of Buddy's journey evident to all. Brief recess to deliberate. As the courtroom emptied, Mark sat down heavily in his chair, exhaustion and tension etched across his face. Buddy rested his head on Mark's knee, as if sensing his anxiety. Anna approached quietly, placing a reassuring hand on Mark's shoulder. "You did great," she said softly. "Whatever happens, we've already made a difference, for Buddy and for every other animal out there." Mark nodded, but the uncertainty of what was to come weighed heavily on him. Outside, the crowd of supporters waited anxiously, their signs swaying gently in the breeze. The shelter staff and volunteers exchanged hopeful glances, though no one dared to voice their fears aloud. When they were called back into the courtroom, the air felt even heavier than before. The judge returned to her seat, her expression unreadable. She shuffled through her notes briefly, then looked up at both parties. "After careful consideration of the evidence presented today," she began, her voice steady and commanding, "I find that returning Buddy to Mr. Roger would not be in the dog's best interest. The testimony and documentation provided clearly demonstrate neglect and inadequate care on Mr. Roger's part." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Mark's heart leapt, but he remained seated, gripping Buddy's leash tightly. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "this case underscores an important principle: animals are more than mere property. They are sentient beings deserving of humane treatment and protection. In light of this, I rule that custody of Buddy will remain with the shelter, and I hereby grant adoption rights to Mr. Mark Reynolds." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Mark blinked back tears, looking down at Buddy, who wagged his tail enthusiastically, seemingly aware that something momentous had just happened. Volunteers and supporters spilled into the courtroom, hugging one another and celebrating the victory. Roger stormed out of the room, his lawyer trailing behind him, while Mark knelt beside Buddy, burying his face in the dog's fur. "We did it, boy," he whispered hoarsely. "You're home for good now." In the days that followed, news of the ruling spread like wildfire. Local media covered the story extensively, highlighting the shelter's dedication and the community's support. Donations poured in from across the country, enabling the shelter to expand its facilities and take in more animals in need. Buddy became a local celebrity, with people stopping by just to catch a glimpse of the brave dog who had inspired so many. At the shelter, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such a monumental event. Adoption rates soared, thanks in part to the increased visibility brought by Buddy's case. Educational workshops drew larger crowds, and fundraising events broke records. One evening, weeks after the trial, Mark found himself sitting on the porch of his small house, Buddy lying contentedly at his feet. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. For the first time in months, Mark felt at peace. "You know," he said, scratching behind Buddy's ears, "you've changed everything around here, for the better. You're not just my dog anymore. You're everyone's hero." Buddy thumped his tail against the wooden planks, his eyes closing lazily in the fading light. Mark smiled, leaning back in his chair. He knew there would always be more battles to fight, more animals to save. But tonight, all that mattered was the quiet joy of knowing they'd won this one together. And somewhere deep inside, Mark believed that Buddy's story would continue to inspire others long after the headlines faded, a reminder that love, compassion, and resilience could overcome even the toughest odds.